Welcome to the Sub Hub podcast. I'm EmKay Sullivan.
And I'm Dani Moreno.
And today we will be covering the World Mountain and Trail Running Championships, which happen June 7th through 10th in Innsbruck, Austria, as well as Dubai. It is a 4-day event, starting with the VK on the 7th, the short trail on the 8th, the long trail on the 9th, and the classic mountain race on the 10th. There are about 1,400 athletes competing in the World Championships this year from at least 60 nations. And we are very excited to get into this. But I think first, Dani wanted to cover some of my training and how it's going, since I will be on my way to Austria pretty soon here.
Yeah, in the next 24 hours.
Yeah.
How are you, I guess now looking back, how are you feeling about the training going into it?
I'm feeling really good. I think this is like the most work I've done so close together. My coach had me doing a lot of workouts. So I do like a workout on a Monday, Tuesday, 2 hours, workout on a Wednesday, Thursday, 2 hours, workout on a Friday. I was working out every other day. And I've never done anything like that in training before. And so I'm feeling very strong. I've done a lot of volume as well as intensity. So
nice. Do you have your USA kit and everything?
I do have my USA kit. I had to return it to get a larger size. Just an FYI, they do not tell you, but those things run pretty small.
Yes.
So I put it on and immediately was like, well, I can't breathe. Gonna have to turn this one back in. But I got my USA kit. I actually did my last long run in it on Sunday just to make sure I knew where and when I was going to chafe during the race.
Yeah, it's always a really cool feeling getting that, and they give you all of the options. And so what do you think you're going to end up racing in?
I think I'm going to end up racing in split shorts and a crop top.
Nice.
Because I like the tank top uniform, but it's a little bit too long for my short little torso. And so I tried the crop top with my pack for Sunday's long run, and I did not chafe. So I think that's what we're going to go for.
That's cool. Have they given you the details of when you're going to meet up with the team and who you're staying with and everything?
I don't know exactly when we're meeting up. I do know that I start staying with the team on the 5th. And I don't know this to be fact, but I was looking at our little spreadsheet, and I'm pretty sure that I get to room with none other than Kimber Maddox.
Nice.
On that.
That's awesome. That's always been one of my favorite parts, is when you get to the house and you kind of, it's hard to feel like a team when you're all co-located, but when you get to the house, you start to have that sort of camaraderie feeling. So I'm really excited for you and everyone.
Yeah. And I've started to put together some routes on Strava because I want to see as much of the course as I can. And I think that I've got at least 2 of the women from the short trail team are going to join me for one of the routes. And I'm excited to do that run, not just run by myself.
Yeah. Is it easy? Do they have lifts up to the top or anything? Yeah,
there's tons of lifts. So the first day I get there, I'm going to take a lift to the top, and I'm going to run the final descent because the descent is 2.8 miles with 3,600 feet of loss. So very steep. And I just want to know what I'm getting myself into, because I'm going to be sandy either way. So I'm going to run that on the very first day to see where we're at. And then, there's just lifts everywhere. So I'm going to see, I think, all but the first maybe 10 or 12K of the course, hopefully, before the race starts.
Nice.
So
that's really smart. I highly recommend just checking the first mile too. I'm sure you will get to, because I'll never forget in 2019, we were in Argentina, and for whatever reason, this was also 2019. This was in Portugal. I somehow was on the long team. That's a story for another time. But we just we checked the end part of the course because that's where all the climbing was and everything, but we never checked the start. And so the day of, we start and we didn't realize that it went into a single track within the first mile. So if you didn't get out, you were just stuck behind everyone. And I learned that lesson to never do that again, to always check that start.
Yeah, the team is staying in Innsbruck, so I think we'll probably check that out, especially because I think it's kind of like Mont Blanc Marathon, where it has two 90-degree turns at the beginning. Like you run down a street and then you turn and then you turn again. So yeah, definitely going to want to check that out, but I can't get it all in before. So I've just given up on that first like trail section because I'm like, whatever is going to happen there is going to happen. Like,
Yeah.
I want to see the second half when I know I'm going to be tired and I like want to know what to expect.
Yeah. And see the actual distance of the race if it's.
Yes. Yeah. Because Strava and the World Championship website are telling me slightly different things. So
always go with the longer, harder one.
yes, exactly. I'm just expecting that it's going to have almost 12,000 feet instead of 10.5 or whatever the website says.
That's so significant.
Yeah. It's like, I can't remember. Maybe Strava said 11.5, but either way, it's a lot. So, but I'm feeling good. I had my last workout this weekend and I did double laps of this mountain in town, Peavine. And the second lap, I was only 2 minutes off of my CR on Peavine. And my course record that I ran on Peavine, I'm pretty sure I like almost blacked out. I ran that so hard. And so to only be 2 minutes behind it, I was like, okay, I'm very fit. This was the second lap of the day and I'm feeling good. So
that's always such a good confidence booster, especially when you're like doing that within a bed of really like a lot of volume and everything.
Yeah, I ran 90 miles total last week with like almost 20,000 feet of gain. And that was at the end. So feeling good.
Nice. I'm so excited for you. All right. Last question before we get to diving into all these previews. What are you most excited about?
The views. I've been seeing everybody's like, there's a couple people that are already there and they've been sending videos in the group chat and the trail is like pretty exposed in a lot of spots, like kind of like sheer cliff faces, but it's also like absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to have to find that balance between not dying and also taking in the views.
I love that. Yeah, I've seen a couple of those videos too, and I'm frothing at the mouth. I'm just like, oh, it's going to be amazing. Looks so good. All right. Shall we get started with the VK?
Yes. So the vertical race is 7.1 kilometers with 3,340 feet of gain. So it's not quite a true VK because 7.1 kilometers is over 4 miles and usually a VK is 5K or less, but still steep. Still not something I want to do.
Yeah. I was like, dang, almost 4.5 miles, basically. Like that's a good amount of time to be pushing uphill. Some other stats is that it's 81% trail, 99% gravel. So that's kind of like crushed up rock. In Europe, this is very common on a lot of their bike paths. So that's usually how they'll say like gravel. And then the last 10% is tarmac, which is like actual road. I'm guessing that's going to be in the beginning. And 10% is like enough where, if you're feeling good, it's a little bit easier to get like a more even cadence versus like on the trail. So maybe you could get out a little bit ahead.
Yeah, especially because like a lot of times with the VK, you start on a road and you immediately get on a single track. So if you don't get out hard enough, like you're kind of stuck where you're stuck. But if it's 10% road, like you should have plenty of time to kind of make your move, figure out where you're going to be.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So the women, let's start with the women. So from the last year's top 10, and keep in mind, this was less than 6 months ago. This was in November in Thailand, very different conditions, humid, dry, very hot. Whereas Innsbruck looks to be a little bit more temperate, not as humid, and it's higher in elevation than Thailand. So of the 9 women returning, the person who's not returning is actually third place from last year, Maud Mathis, who honestly would be a favorite if she was returning this year. She's just been very dominant in uphill races or anything that typically has like a lot of climbing. She has like this very recognizable power hiking form that a lot of people like she sticks out for that reason. So without her in there, the top returners are our one and only American pride and joy, Allie Mack from first place, Andrea Mayer, who she's a previous champion and she's always up front in the hunt. She does a lot of like the WMRA World Cup races, usually wins a lot of those, has won that overall. Fourth place returner, Monica Madalina Floria from Romania. Fifth place returner, Ondis Iturbe from Spain. Sixth place returner, Susanna Sapunki from Finland. Seventh place returner, Elisa Sortini from Italy. And eighth place returner, Crystal DeWall from France. Ninth, Teresa Herchova from the Czech Republic. And 10th place was Hannah Grober from Germany.
It's kind of crazy that so many of them are returning.
I know. That is pretty wild to me too. Because, like having that short turnaround to figure out like what your next year's races are going to be without having the World Championship in context. And then as soon as they announced it, I'm sure people were scrambling. Yeah. But also like with the VK, for a lot of these people, like they run less than, I would say the majority of people run less than 10 VKs, probably less than 5 VKs a year. So that like, if that's your jam, like the World Championship is probably top of mind every single year.
Definitely. Yeah. And then some other runners who weren't at the championships in Thailand, but we think you guys should be looking out for are Laura Hottenrott. She is from Germany. She has run 33:24 in the 10K, which is really fast. And for people who pay any attention to VKs, maybe you don't, maybe you do, track speed really translates to this specific race. Sorry, 32:33 is her PR. She ran 33:24 this April. But yeah, track speed really translates well to these all uphill races. And this girl is fast. 1:11 and a half in 2022. Definitely be looking for her.
Yeah, she also won the Jungfrau Marathon in 2021, which is like this really prestigious race in Switzerland. It's a little bit older. It used to probably have like more of the crowds of kind of like that sub 50K group prior to the Golden Trail World Series. A lot of notable runners over the years have gone and ran this marathon. And basically it's the first half is like a road half. And then the second half, you're just like climbing straight up to Jungfrau, which is like considered, it's like basically like a peak in Switzerland. You run to the base of it. So her winning that, like, she definitely has some climbing legs because that's basically a climbing race for an entire marathon.
After running like a half on the roads. That sounds terrible.
Yeah. It's crazy. So another person is Falaris Kasang. She's from Kenya. She really came onto the scene last year at Sierra Zanal. So at Sierra Zanal, on the day, she was third. And then after the results were changed due to first place being caught for doping, she actually got second place behind Maud Mathis. And that was her first time at Sierra Zanal ever. So the result kind of fell under the radar because initially she wasn't in, that top first or second. And the first place woman, it was also her first time running Sierra Zanal. So she kind of, got overshadowed there. But that was an crazy, incredible result to be there your first time.
If I remember correctly, she may have gone out pretty hard, like with that front pack and like kind of suffered later in the race because she'd never like run the race before. And, but to get second place at that race is insane.
Yeah, it's incredible. And she was under that 3-hour mark, which is like, a pretty key mark at Sierra Zanal. If you're under 3 hours, you're kind of a big deal. And then, what's crazy though, is also the week before she won Theon Dixings, I forgot to say it. But that's usually like a pretty prestigious double in the sub ultra world in mountain running because they are back to back and they're very similar, very punchy, fast, both in Switzerland. I think Theon is actually in France, but it's very close to there. So anyways, beyond that, she ended up in Madeira. She went to the Golden Trail World Series final. It was her first time, I think, like on an island or something like that. And then in addition to that, she didn't speak English. So I just thought that was like incredibly cool and brave to like put herself out there in her first trail season ever. And then to go to Madeira of all places. And like at the end of the week, her total time, she wasn't fifth overall in the standings, but her total time was fifth overall, which is pretty incredible going from Sierra Zanel to the treacherous Madeira.
Yeah. Two very different races.
Yes. But yeah, she definitely will be up there because, yeah, she shot off like a rocket at Sears now.
Yeah. Another name to look out for is Judith Wider. Judith is pretty well known in the Golden Trail scene. She was really successful back in 2019, especially, but she won Dolomites in 2021. She was second at Olla de Nuria in 2021. And in 2019, she was the Ring of Steel and Dolomites champion. And in 2019, she was also the overall champion for the Golden Trail World Series. Judith, I think she was just outside of the top 10 last year in the vertical race. So she's always up there, but she's also running the short trail race the next day. So I'm curious to see how this double kind of goes for her. But Judith is like a world-class downhiller. She's also very good at uphill too, obviously, but I'm like a little bummed that she moved to the short trail because I think that the classic is such a good race for her because of her downhill legs, but she'll do. There's lots of downhill in the class or in the short trail too. But yeah, so if we have 2019 Judith Wider on her hands, I think she has a chance to be in the top 5. I don't know. Danny was telling me that like she had this weird thing with her where she was going blind in one of her eyes and it was making her balance off, right?
Yeah, it's there's like a whole episode of it in one of like the Chasing Dreams Golden Trail World Series. I think it's like called Moms, something like that. But yeah, it's kind of been messing with her for basically since like end of 2021 as was when it started happening, but she's back to racing. She's been doing a lot of cross country races. My guess is like if she was all in on the VK, for sure, top 5, top 10. But now
she's going to come back the next day.
But if she's coming back, she might just be using it as like a rust buster and they had a spot to fill. But regardless, a good name to call out. Another woman is Risper Chebet. This one, I'm really excited for her. She represents Uganda. She was the junior champion in 2017 and 2018 for the Mountain Classic. So she can do up and up down because prior to the VKs being included in this world championship all in one week sort of thing, they used to do it where the Mountain Classic would switch off every year, where there was 1 year it was up, 1 year it was up down. Now it looks like going forward it's always going to be the VK is the up, and then they're always going to have the up down for the Mountain Classic. But she is wicked fast. She has a 109 PR in the half and a 223 in the marathon.
That's sick.
So, and she's still pretty young too. I need to double check myself, but she's like in her young 20s. So she is definitely someone to look out for in this VK. Yeah.
We've got 3 Ugandans on this to look for list. So the next one is also Ugandan, Annette Chelingat. She was second in the up-down championships just last November in Thailand, and second in the Ugandan selection race. So she's got the experience. Obviously, she's got the uphill legs if she was second in the up-down last year. So it'll be fun to see Uganda kind of duke it out.
Yeah. And the last one is Joy Cheptoyek, and she won Uganda selection race. Another thing is that Uganda was absent from the VK last year because their bus actually didn't get to the start in time. And so that's why like you see them absent. There's none of them in the top 10 in the results last year for that reason. And then they came back so hard in the up down. So I am curious to see like them do both races and like how their bodies, I'm sure they're going to be fine. But like last year, they only did the one race. Yeah. Because their bus didn't make it.
Yeah, because the nice thing about this year, I think it's a little different from last year, is they have 2 days in between the vertical and the up down. And the vertical shouldn't take that much out of your legs. Just obviously it takes it out of your energy system. So yeah, that'll be curious.
Yeah.
And then last but not least on our who to watch for the women's VK is Grayson Murphy. She was the US champion in the VK and up down this year. She ran 110 in the half pretty much by herself. She had some pacers, but like she wasn't racing. She was out there basically like time trialing. I think she won the race overall actually. And she was also the world champion in 2019 in Patagonia in the classic race. And was it up down that year or was it just up?
Yes, it was one loop of an up down.
Okay.
Whereas this year it's two loops. Yeah. So the VK wasn't an event at the World Championships that year, or else she probably would have done that too.
Yeah. And we saw Grayson win the up down. Well, she won the VK in like a smashing, well, it was like 7 minutes or something. It was maybe not 7 minutes. It was a lot. But she crushed the VK, but she also came back and beat world champion Allie Mack the next day by quite a bit in the up down race. So she is definitely fit right now. She's on. I'm very excited to see how this goes for her.
Yeah, me too. And this is like, there's, to me, like the VK, whether it was all tarmac or all trail, it's kind of just like whoever's got the craziest aerobic system and like beastliness, you're going up no matter
have
what.
To deal with the technicality, really.
Exactly. Yeah. Which, like, you know, some of these women I might not put on this list if there was a technicality aspect to it. Do you want to call maybe your podium?
Ooh, okay. So
you don't have to know what to.
My podium right now is actually Grayson, Allie Mack, and then Andrea.
That's good. Yep.
What's yours?
I am struggling because I have my biases.
Yeah.
I think it is Grayson's race to lose.
Yes.
But I don't think she's going to go unchallenged. Like, I think she's going to have to race for it for
Me
sure.
Too.
Whereas like, I feel like typically we haven't really seen her get super challenged yet. And that's like, and she's a racer though. Like, I've seen her race plenty of times in like track and stuff like that. She'll fight for it. But I definitely think she's going to have to fight for this one because they start on the road. And so someone like Risper can keep up with her on the road. Like, it's not something crazy for her to go out with Grayson, and same with Allie Mack and Andrea. So I'm going to throw Grayson and Risper, and Andrea and Allie are going back and forth with me. It depends on like how this last month went for Allie. And if she's that November Allie or if she's still like, you know, getting in shape for other things later this summer.
Yeah. I think that's a solid. And honestly, going back to the road portion, like Laura Hottentrott from Germany also could get out hard, you know, so.
Yeah, 111 is not anything to forget about. That's for sure.
It'll be spicy. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
So on the men's side, we have, on the women's, we had 9 out of the 10 returning. On the men's side, we have 8 out of the 10 returning from last year. The entire podium is back. So you got Patrick Kipnego from Kenya, Philemon Kiriago from Kenya, Alejandro Garcia from Spain. 4th place is not coming back. Zach Hanna from Ireland, Joe Gray from the US, Cesar Maestri from Italy, Xavier Chevrier from Italy, Marek Treskina from the Czech Republic, and 10th place is not returning for the VK. So again, like it could be anybody's race for sure, but just having the top 10 be that stacked and coming back is like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I accidentally messed up on that. So Alex is coming back.
Oh, okay. That's good to know because Alex was actually at the US Championships. Oh, sorry.
He was at the US Championships and he actually won the whole race overall. So yeah, I had to double check my work right now because I was like, why would he have done that if not to race the VK? So yeah, actually 9 out of the top 10 from last year. That's incredible. And then a couple other ones to watch. We have Hillary Kim Yayo from Kenya. He has a 101 in the half marathon. Fabian Absursold. He's from Switzerland. Wow, sorry. And he is the student world orienteering champion last year.
And for those people who don't know what orienteering is, orienteering isn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dani, because I don't know a ton about it either, but like basically it's a race on not quite trails. Like you're given a map and you have to get from one place to the next, and you're kind of just like going wherever. And so like, and they're fast. That's what Judith Wider was into before she got into trail running. Those people are no joke.
They're no joke. Like historically, any orienteering champions who have come over to trail have done extremely well. Judith Wider, like EmKay said, Tove Anderson, who we'll talk about later in the preview for some other races, she is beastly. She is incredible. Fred Lanchard, he just won the recent Sky Race. He's a previous world orienteering champion. Anna Kufer, very common on the Golden Trail World Series. She's in orienteering. And basically it's like, they give you this map and you don't know where you're going to run until the day of the race. And you're just like staring at this map and you're trying to drop like these trackers at these different spots. And it's wild. Sometimes they're like carrying this like, I don't know if it's like a GPS thing. So sometimes they're running with like one hand in the air too. It blows my mind. Anyways, side tangent. So YouTube this. So whenever an orienteering champion, junior or senior comes, like they should be taken very seriously is what we're trying to say.
Because like now they know exactly where the trail is. Like they're already moving so fast, having to find where they're going. And then they come to the trail running world and they're like, oh, there's a map.
Yeah. There's flags. And they basically are like sprinting for hours in orienteering is what it is. Yeah. So
it's crazy. And they also have like no ankle tendons.
Yes.
It's like constantly like rolling their ankles. So
it's incredible. And then the last couple that we thought were notable to call out, Dan Kurtz. He was the U.S. champion in the Mountain Classic. We also have an episode with him if you haven't checked that out yet. And Daniel Osans, he's actually a Terex teammate of mine, but he was second at Pikes Peak last year at the Golden Trail World Series. And he just like cranks on VKs year round. Like this is one of his like bread and butter sort of things.
And that Pikes Peak race was incredibly stacked.
Yes.
Remy won it. He got second. Joe Gray was third. Eli Hemming was fourth. It was an insane race.
Yeah. Yeah. And he doesn't live at altitude too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously he's got the uphill legs.
Yeah.
So that is our VK. Oh, no, we got to see, I don't have a men's VK podium. This one was hard for me. Somebody we didn't mention. Sorry. Jim Walmsley is signed up for the US VK team. We're assuming that what happened here was, Garrett Corcoran, who was the U.S. breakneck champion this year, he took his spot on the short trail team and gave up his spot on the vertical team. And that spot does not roll down. So they usually offer spots for the vertical and the up down team to somebody who's already on the team. And so Jim Walmsley is running the vertical and the long trail. And honestly, I'm really excited to see that because I think he's going to do pretty well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he did very well, but also like you got to give respect to Joe Gray. I just feel like Joe Gray is going to protect his turf or do whatever he can.
Yeah, no doubt.
Protect his turf. But yeah, as far as the podium, I mean, it's pretty okay. So last year, Patrick, he won by quite a bit, like almost 2 minutes. Almost 2 minutes. Yeah. Whereas on the female side, Ali only won by 26 seconds. So the female side was like a much closer race. And Patrick, like he's only been in trail running for a couple of years, but he's just been crushing the WMRA stuff, especially the uphill sort of races. He now, I think if you like look at the UTMB index, within the couple of years, he's already considered like top 10 overall in the world because these short races that he puts together or the times that he puts in them, it's just like, it's great. Like he's doing great stuff. So, you know, in all due respect, like he should be the favorite going into this. And then after that, his teammate who got second, Kiriago, he was then, about 30 seconds against that third place guy. So then the race started to get like a lot closer. I do think that, after watching Alex and Joe at the VK championships, like they're in really good shape, but it's hard to see,
Yeah, I remember Joe talking last year after Thailand about how he did not feel like he didn't feel like he was prepared. I don't remember if it was that he felt overtrained or undertrained. It was one of the two. And so like that may not be the Joe Gray that we're used to seeing. And he may like be super ready for this Innsbruck race. It seems like he is based off of what I see on Instagram. I guess so. My podium would probably be Patrick. I'm going to throw Daniel Osans in second. And then I'm going to put Philemon Kiriago in third.
Yeah, I feel like those are really good choices too. I would say Patrick as well. And then Kiriago in second or third, and then somewhere between Daniel Osans, Joe Gray, and Alex Ricard, which again, there's probably a little bit of bias there just because I just saw them race. And it'd be nice to see Joe get his world championship medal back since he did win it in 2019. So yeah, great race ahead though. And I can't wait to see what Jim does.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's get started with the trail short, which is the following day on June 8th. This is a 45.2 kilometer race with roughly 10,300 feet of climbing. So what is that in meters? Like 3,200 meters or so?
Yeah, something around there. And I actually ran like the last probably 13 miles of the course today. And the climbs are very sustained and they'll be fun.
Yeah. What surprised you about the course?
The course was a little bit more not technical. It was actually maybe less technical than I thought it was going to be in a lot of places, but it was, there were a couple of spots that it was like sheer cliff faces. And I was a little sketched out by that, but you just got to be smart. And then, the final downhill didn't surprise me at all. It was terrible.
Yeah, we've talked about that, I think, in some other episodes too. Just like anticipating what that final downhill is going to look like, because it's roughly like you're basically losing 1,000 feet per mile, right?
Yeah, it's 2.8 miles with 3,600 feet of loss.
So more than 1,000 feet per mile. That's awesome. And like, is it a loop course? I forget. No, it's point to point.
It's point to point. Yeah. So you start in Innsbruck and you end down in Dubai, or up, nice. I guess up in Dubai, because you gain elevation. You gain more than you lose. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, EmKay and I had a fun time going through this list. We're both going to talk about the men, and then I'm just going to talk about the women as EmKay is racing, and just to make it a little bit more unbiased as possible. But yeah, I think both of us, this one like definitely hits the heart a little bit more because this is the distance that we run. So we're a little extra excited for this race. So on the guys' side, 9 out of the top 10 men are returning, and that was already an incredible field last year. So you have the entire podium all the way down to 8th place returning. 9th place, Antonio Martinez from Spain isn't returning, and then 10th is returning as well. So those guys in order, we have Stian Ingerman from Norway, Francesco Pupi from Italy, John Albin from the UK, Max Keane from representing the United States, Christian Jones from the UK, Thomas Cardin from France, or Cardin, Andrea Rota from Italy. 8th was Bogdan Damian from Romania, and 10th place was Christian Minogio.
Yeah, definitely looking to be a super stacked race. Stian, I mean, this course definitely, like, in my head, it's perfect for him. So I'm excited to see how this goes. Other runners to look out for on the men's side that are not in the top 10 from last year are John Marguerite. He won the 2021 Sky Rune, and he went on to get 5th at the final of the Golden Trail World Series. He's usually in like the top 15 to 20 of most Golden Trail races that he races in. So seeing him in the top 10 at one of these races wouldn't be surprising. Thibaut Baronian, if you follow the Golden Trail World Series, you definitely know Thibaut. He's I remember being at Mont Blanc Marathon last year and people were like obsessed with him because he's a Frenchman and they were like, oh, Thibaut's going to do great. He has he had the second overall fastest time for the Golden Trail World Series final last October, and ended up finishing third overall in the standings. He was third at CCC in 2021 and has multiple top finishes at Zagama, including seventh just like a month ago. Julian Rincon was 14th at World Champs in 2019 and 13th last year. Frederic Trenchard was 12th last year and recently won Sky Race de Mathesine. Probably not saying that one right, but and then Davide Magnini, who is an Italian, and he was second at both Mont Blanc Marathon and Zagama last year, and second at Mont Blanc the year before. We haven't seen a lot from David since that Mont Blanc Marathon performance last year, but if he's in good shape, this is a perfect course for him. And then, oh yeah, sorry. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think at Norway, he was like top 5, but he ended up not doing the final in Madeira or in Thailand because he was transitioning to ski season, because he also races for the Italian national team, I believe in skimo. So kind of like that uphill, downhill skiing. And he's also part of like, I think it's like the Italian army team. And so they're like a bit more strict about him participating in those ski. It's something like that. So that's why sometimes like he'll be in the summer seasons, like coming out really hard, and he doesn't always do the final, like for Golden Trail World Series. So that's kind of why he like usually bounces and you're like, what the heck? This guy probably could have gotten top 3 and he always disappears. But yeah.
And Thailand was after Golden Trail, so he definitely couldn't do that.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, as far as, favorites and kind of like these others to look out for, this is going to be a tremendous race. Stian, like EmKay said, he is just like, he is very good at everything. Like he isn't like, he's one of the best downhillers, but he's not the best downhillers. He's one of the best climbers, but he's not the best climber, but he's just like this overall weapon that like you throw him in any race and he usually succeeds. Like he's on the top, especially since 2022 in that Golden Trail World Series. He pretty much went undefeated until the final, where he was running down this downhill and he had like taken a wrong turn. He ended up jumping off of like this 8-foot wall into some volcanic rock and like cut up his leg. He still finished and won the overall series, but completely fearless. And last year he was a little bit more absent from the Golden Trail World Series and started to kind of dabble in some other ones. Talking to him personally, it was just that he had done a lot of those races multiple times and wanted to experience new places. And that all being said, he won last year and he won by a couple minutes in what was already an incredible field. So adding people like Jan, Thibaut, Julien Frederic, and Davide will definitely add more excitement. And then second place from last year, Francesco, he is kind of like coming back from a series of injuries. He was recently 22nd at Sagama. What I like about Francesco is he like doesn't pretend to put on this front. Like he's very forward on Instagram that he doesn't like technical terrain, or I feel like it's trail runners. Even if you don't like it, you have to like pretend to like the thrill of it. So I always appreciate that about him. EmKay, you're pretty good at that too.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend.
Yeah. And so Francesco definitely loves races where you can like stride it out and run. And he always just like shows up in these big races. In 2019, he like battled Jim pretty much to the finish of the World Championship, where Jim crossed the line in one of the first times that I saw him like exhausted. So it's definitely a battle. And in 2021, he won the final stage of Golden Trail. So he didn't win like the overall series, but when it came to El Hierro, he like beat every single person that had been competing in the series all year. So he knows how to show up well to big races. And then John Albin, just diving a little more deeper into him too. He was recently third at Sagama, and I'm going to guess he might be like a little frustrated with that performance. He was really gunning for that win. And I don't think he had done that race before too. So we all know how that feels when you're like you're like waiting and then it doesn't go as planned. But he also won OCC in 2021 and second at CCC in 2022. So he knows how to run these types of
And
races.
he also won the race in Norway.
And he won the race in Norway.
So
Yeah.
like he's got big range because the race in Norway was really short. And it's also super technical because he trains in Norway with Killian. So stuff like that is just like this final descent for him and Stian, like small potatoes.
Totally. And, you know, like thinking to last year, I think Stian was like gunning for this title, whereas John, he was coming off of CCC and a couple other races. So maybe he was a little bit tired. I mean, it's also quite hot. But Stian's also from Norway. So it's hard to even use that as an example. Another person we wanted to call out was just like our very own Max Keane. He was 4th last year. He knows how to run these races. He's been in multiple top 10s for these world championships for over the last like 5, 6, 7 years. And he's on our team again. And a couple other guys, Rui Ueda, he runs for Japan. He was 3rd at Mont Blanc last year. Overall, 3rd fastest time when you combine all the stages from the Golden Trail World Series final. And he was also 4th overall in the standings. So that includes the whole season.
And he just did some crazy like FKT up, down of Mount Fuji.
Nice. Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, he's a fun follow on Instagram. And then this was kind of just like a couple fun ones for me to add personally. So Anders, I'm going to really struggle with his last name. Yarkovic. He was 3rd overall in El Hierro in 2021. So again, that's that final stage that Francesco Pupi won. And he hasn't really had any results that have kind of gone along with that in the last year and stuff like that. But this guy, if you've ever seen on Instagram, like the guy sliding down the mountain in the final Madeira, that is this guy. And he, like, whenever you ask the guys on the circuit, they always will agree to say Anders is the best downhiller in the world, which is a very big statement coming from a lot of Europeans. I asked Stian once who he thought, and he was like, hands down Anders. Like if it was just with the downhill race. So that's coming from Stian. But yeah, you watch this guy on the downhill, he is fearless. He'll like fall on his head, somehow flip over and keep going. So he's just a guy that if he's in the hunt, like going into that last downhill and you're a guy in front of him, I would be very aware and
be scared.
I'd be scared. Yeah. He'll find some way to cut the switchbacks. And then the last one is Petter Engel. He was the course record run at CCC last year, winner overall, just led from wire to wire. So he beat John Albin and he won Transvolcania later. And I'm just like, what is he doing in this shorter race? I'm excited to see.
I was also curious about that. But it like, I mean, as you know, as somebody who's run OCC, it's going to be a longer short race. Like because there's so much elevation gain, it's still not going to be that short. And so maybe he's just like, the 80, because the 80K is more like 85K. Maybe he was just like, not now.
Yeah, no, definitely. And just talking to him personally, he is gunning for UTMB. And so he's just he's like stacking a bunch of these style races. So it's he's doing Mont Blanc Marathon. He's doing, what is that other one? It's like okay. It's another marathon in Switzerland. He's doing Eiger. So he's doing like a lot of 3 to 6 hour races as like kind of training runs. But as we all know, like, you know, guys like Jim, they run 100 miles and they could run these distances too.
Yeah, definitely. So do you have a podium?
You go first.
Okay. So my men's podium is Stian, John Albin, and Petter Engdahl, but I think that Rui Ueda is also in the hunt for that top 3 spot.
That's a really good pick. Yeah, I would also say Stian and John Albin, and then I'm gonna go with Davide if he's ready to roll. This is actually like one of his first longer races too. So I'll see how he goes. But Davide, like he's always been there, and he's a very good competitor. But what I think like blew him to the next level was Sagama last year when he was literally with Killian more than halfway through, just like on his tail. So yeah, I think he can hold his own. But
And I think he may have beaten Stian at Mont Blanc Marathon like back in 2019 or something. And so
he got second to him, but he was close. He was very close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he knows how to race Stian too, who obviously is going to be successful in this race, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Both of our opinions. We both have him winning. So
awesome.
Alrighty.
All right. Now we're going to transition to the women's trail short race. So as far as from last year, 8 out of the top 10 are returning, and the 2 that aren't returning are actually pretty heavy hitters. So Denisa Dragomir, she was 8th at the World Championships in 2019, and she won this last year in Thailand. She will not be returning. I don't really know. Maybe it's because she's focusing on the skyrunning circuit or something else. Maybe she just has a lot of races on her calendar already, but she will not be returning, as well as 5th place, Sheila Viles from Spain. She's always been in this top 10, at least like the last 3 world champion cycles. But she unfortunately got injured or had kind of a nagging injury and recently had surgery, so she will not be returning for Team Spain. However, 2nd place, Barbora Makruva from the Czech Republic. She is returning. 3rd place, Amelia Branglefot from Sweden. She recently got 2nd place at the Transvolcania Marathon Distance. 4th place, Nuria Gil. She was 2nd place in OCC last year behind Shayla. Just a Spanish powerhouse. She has won Gran Canaria this year, always in the top 10 for the Golden Trail World Series races. And she also recently was running as a Gama and unfortunately did not finish. So hoping she's coming to this race healthy and ready to go. If so, she's definitely a big threat. 6th place, Fabiola Conti from Italy. She's also returning. Big on the skyrunning circuit last year. She's also dabbled in some Golden Trail World Series races here and there and has gotten top 10. Most notably, I believe, Zagama last year, which was really historic with the top 3 women all going under the course record. She was, I believe, 5th place and got passed in the last downhill. 7th is our very own Kimber Maddox. She was 4th at OCC last year, multi-US champ, rim to rim, FKT holder, and she got 7th here. She had an incredible year last year. No doubt that she'll come in with the same kind of fire. 8th is Eleanor Davis. She also got She also has numerous top 10s in international races. I believe she was 3rd at the European. Yes, she was 3rd at the European Championships last year, which, as we all know, those championships are very competitive. She has like a 2:30 and change marathon time as well. She has done a couple of races this year. Unfortunately, one she got heat stroke, and so I think she took a little bit of a break on that. But over the winter, she set the female Bob Graham FKT record, which is a really well-known FKT in the UK. And then 9th is Sharon Taylor, also from the UK. And 10th is Julia Font, another strong Spanish runner. So even though 2 of the top 10 aren't returning, this is still an incredible returning field. And this is just the top 10. It goes even deeper, like the top 20. A majority of the field is returning. So I'm excited to see those runners go at it again, especially because the race was overall pretty close last year, considering that it was the marathon distance. I mean, just looking at it, 6th through 10th were only separated by 5 minutes. That's crazy. So they will definitely all be very close. Oh, and you had 4th in there, and it's actually 6 minutes. So a very, very close race last year. Some other runners to look out for. This list is kind of crazy, so bear with me. But if you're doing Freetrail fantasy, you're welcome. I did the work for you. Okay, so we'll start with Anastina Ericala. She recently got second at the Istria 65K. She was ninth overall in the Golden Trail final race at El Hierro, not the overall standings in 2021. But then she backed that up and she flew to the Azores the week after, and she was second overall for the National Series final, which that year was a 3-day stage race. So she definitely has that aerobic energy. Diona Gorla, she has actually ran this race twice as kind of, it might be slightly confusing, but there's like a festival week and there's a world championship week. And obviously, historically, there hasn't been a world championship week, but she has ran the festival version of this race. Say that 3 times fast. And she has won both times. So personally, I find that when you have course knowledge, it's a huge advantage. And no doubt that she has a lot of course knowledge and she lives in the area. So definitely someone to keep your eyes out for. We also have Lauren Hottentrott. As mentioned in the VK preview, she has won the Jungfrau Marathon, and she's also in the VK, which there are a couple runners doing that double. So that will be definitely interesting. Maybe something to just kind of like warm up the legs before the big day. We have Daniela Omis, recent winner of Zagama. That is definitely her best performance out of her results in recent years, but that is one heck of a performance. So we definitely should keep our eyes on her. She is obviously fit. We have Karina Kriesglo. She's from Mexico. She was third at the Dolomites race in 2021 as far as the Golden Trail World Series. She was dealing with some injuries kind of after that, but if she's in really good shape, I would definitely consider her for a top 10, especially hearing about this course from EmKay and other people who have been out there. There's a lot of very technical parts, and Karina just eats people up on technical descents, similar to Elise Poncet, who we will mention in the Classic Mountain. She is just, top 5 female downhill runners in the world. So if you give her enough runway to catch people, she will catch people for sure. Also, she lives at altitude in Mexico, and so this race being at altitude, I don't think will affect her much. We then have Eliane de Verkesal. She won Zagama in 2019. It kind of came out of nowhere, similar to Daniela this year. And then she backed that performance up with a third at Mont Blanc Marathon. And she was 12th this year at Zagama. So she's still, always kind of in that like top 15, especially for very mountainous races. Then we have Sylvia Nordeskar. She recently was 4th at Zagama. She was 12th last year in Thailand, just outside of that top 10, one of those examples I was talking about. And she also was 12th at CCC. So this girl definitely has range with races ranging from 4 to 10, 12 hours. Then we have Caitlin Fielder, who recently got second at Zagama. So yes, we have first, second, and we also have third, who I'll mention in a second, and fourth recently from Zagama, all coming to this race to battle each other again. And so that was a great performance for Caitlin, but she's been on the podium a couple times. And so last year she was second at Mont Blanc, actually right ahead of me in 2022. She was third at OCC in 2021. And again, just consistently top 10 in those Golden Trail World Series races. Personally, I know she's really fit right now, and she can do everything. She could climb, she could descend, and she's good on the flat stuff. So I think she'll be, no doubt for me, she'll be in the top 10. It's just a matter of what place she will be in on the day. Then we have Londi Grayling. She won UTC T50K in November. That's a very technical 50K. We have Megan McKenzie. They're both from South Africa. Recently was second at Transvolcania, the main distance in May. And I read something that she made up more than like 10 minutes on the descent. And having witnessed it firsthand, very good descender. Something about South Africans, they can just rock the heck out of a downhill. Then we have Toni McCann, also from South Africa. She recently won Transvolcania Marathon in May, and she also was top 10 in OCC last year. Then we have that third place from Zagama, Therese LeBoeuf, and she's had a couple of top 10s Golden Trail World Series races. Judith Wider, who we also mentioned in the VK. Johanna Astrom, very, very strong technical runner, finished top 10 overall with the time in Madeira for the stage races last year. We have Amelia Branglafot, who I actually already mentioned. She got third overall in Thailand last year. Then we have Emily Forsberg. She used to have the mountain marathon record before Ali Mack took it. And she had really gotten that time from the downhill. If you ever have a chance, look on YouTube at her race from Mount Marathon of her rocking that downhill. So whereas Ali Mack got a tremendous amount of time on the uphill, Emily got it on the downhill. She also was third at Strandfjord Golden Trail World Series race last year. And honestly, before these last couple of years, she's been focused on growing her family with the one and only Kilian Jornet. She was always on the podium of these really big races. So definitely, if she's feeling fit and ready, another very strong top 10 contender. And then we have our US team, which I felt the need to include all of them on the others to watch. Obviously, we already know Kimber because she was in this race in Thailand and she was 7th. So already proving she's a top 10 strong contender. But I wanted to add Brittany Charbonneau. She recently won the Breakneck Marathon. She's won a lot of Colorado races, has done well at Moab earlier on in the year. And I just really thought her win at Breakneck was awesome. I love when athletes are willing to share kind of their perceived weaknesses on Instagram. It kind of adds to the holistic view of a runner, especially in trail running when there's so many components to consider of what makes a great trail runner. So her just being open about her maybe feeling like she wasn't the best on technical stuff and then getting that win, I was just really happy for her and to see that because I know how that feels personally. So I really hope she is taking that extra confidence boost and knowing that when she hits the more technical terrain on this course, because it is there, that she can hang with the best. So definitely someone I'm considering in that top 10 mix as well. Then we have Bailey Kowalczyk. She was 5th overall in the Golden Trail World Series standings last year, 5th at Sierra Zanel, which to me has really been her best performance to date. And it was one heck of a performance. I mean, that field on that day was outstanding. It would be an understatement. So to get 5th there, I think really cemented how competitive Bailey is on the international scene. Bailey is also just really good at very steep, whether it's up or down, she does incredibly well. She's a very strong power hiker and technical descents, the steeper I find, the stronger she gets. And this course has a lot of that. So I think that's where Bailey's going to really shine. Whereas with Brittany, maybe like some of the runnable stuff, I can see her getting a lot more time there. Then we have Jennifer Leichter. She won Broken Arrow 52K in 2022. She was also the Rut 50K champ in 2021 and second at Speedgoat 50K in 2022. So mountainous 50Ks are this girl's jam. She's done the 3 biggest ones in the US. And so I think feeling this distance and everything will be kind of just like her bread and butter. She hasn't really done any like big international races. So if there's any component to like, I don't even know if the word is to be weary of, but just like something to consider is if she will get shocked by like the style of racing. Personally, I don't think so. I've trained with this girl. I ran with her when she's been in Mammoth. She just gets it. And so I honestly think if she's having a good day, she'll be in the top 5. But we'll see. I will say like, for me personally, like my first couple of international experiences it was all about learning. And so I kind of let expectations go out the window. So I don't know where she's at, like if she's gunning for the win, if she's just trying to like take it all in, etc. But yeah, she's very, very strong. Then we have Claire Rhodes. She was like the bridesmaid, but never the bride, pretty much at all the qualifiers, just outside of the qualifying spot. So I'm really happy she ended up getting a resume spot because obviously she can hang with her team. And this is an incredibly strong trail short team on the women's side for Team USA. And then last but not least, we have our very own EmKay Sullivan, the co-host of the Sub Hub. She finished top 10 at Mont Blanc Marathon and Pikes Peak Ascent last year, both of which were Golden Trail World Series races. She was also the Way Too Cool champ in 2022, and she recently finished third at Canyon's 50K. I know at Canyon she was feeling like a little sick and like actually had to sit down, which that I think says a lot because it's a pretty like compared to some of the other races she's done, like it's a pretty timid course. So obviously she was not feeling good. And then with Mont Blanc in Pikes Peak Ascent, I think it was great for her to like dip her toes in the water as far as the international scene. So she's going into this race and she knows what to expect. Like nothing's gonna be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's happening. She has had a very, very good training block, but also our entire team has had really good training blocks just looking at their Stravas. So yeah, EmKay can definitely be in the top 10. But also, as I mentioned, there's probably like 20 women who could be in the top 10. To me personally, I'm having extreme FOMO. I wish I was part of this race. This race to me is just like, it's just an incredible field. So whoever wins this race, already congrats to them. To me, this is one of like the deepest races of the World Championship field. And I'm not just saying that, like it literally is. If you look at all the ITRA scores and everything, it's just who's who is there. So it's very exciting. As far as the teams go, we have a very good shot at winning. I will say, though, again, just me trying to be unbiased, as far as the United States side, at least one of our girls need to have like the race of their life. Because the rest of these teams, they are just as strong. And the same would go for them too, where one of their women would need to go just an inch above to like get that podium. Who that's going to be, it's really hard to say. Brittany and Bailey are coming off a breakneck, which I have found personally having one last big effort about a month out tends to go really well. Jennifer Leitster, she hasn't really raced this year. She did the Lake Sonoma Marathon and was like, I think third overall or something crazy like that. But otherwise, she hasn't really done any racing, so she could be a little bit more fresher. Same with Kimber. Claire Rhodes has done a couple of races, but she's showed up every single time. And if anything plays into the Emily Hawgood theory, that tends to work out really well for some people. And then EmKay as well. She's similar with Claire. She's done a couple of races this year already. But that just means they're probably sharp. So who's going to have the day? I'm not sure. Some of the teams that I am keeping an eye out for, South Africa has 3 girls, and each of their girls are incredibly talented. Norway as well, Sweden, and then you got to give it to Spain and the UK because, yeah, they always show up. UK had 2 in the top 10 last year, and then Spain had 3 in the top 10. And Spain always shows up to these races since they've started participating in them. So yeah, there's the trail short for women.
Right. Day 3 of the champs is going to be our long trail, which is typically an 80K team, but this race is a little bit closer to 85K with 18,200 feet of gain. It will be on June 9th. And I believe that they run the short trail race backwards on their way back. So there were some climbs there that I was like, "Ooh, this will be fun to go down." Glad I don't have to do that, but it's going to be a beautiful race either way. So on the men's side, we have, this seems to be pretty typical in like all of these races. And I'm wondering if it's just because the races are so close together, Thailand and this one, but we have 9 out of our top 10 returning, but our winner is gone. Adam Peterman was supposed to do Western States this year, just recently announced that he is hurt, so he won't be doing Western States. But he's the only one out of the top 10 that's gone from last year. So we've still got Nicolas Martin from France, Andreas Rietre from Italy, Jose Fernandez from Spain, Aritz Agia from Spain, Thibaut Garivier from France, Eric Lapuma from the US, Peter Franjo from Slovakia, Dietrich Hermansen from Norway, and Paul Mathieu from France. Yeah. So what do you think about missing our number one there?
I mean, if you're going to pull anyone off the bench, might as well be Jim Walmsley, world champion, the trail short in 2019. Back in that year, the trail long was still separated. So that was a different race on a different weekend. And so in Patagonia, you only had the options of the classic, the junior races were that week, and the trail short. So I'm not surprised he's jumping in the long one this time since there is that option. But yeah, I mean, with our US race, of the three returners, only Eric Lapuma is coming back. And, you know, that's the winning team from last year with France in second and Spain in third. And so, you know, with Jim coming in, but also Drew Holman, I think the US men like have a good shot if they all kind of show up. I personally haven't seen Drew do any like mountainous races like this. I could be wrong. I guess he did do UCTC. He got third in the 100K last year, but it's still a little different, like from what I hear about the kind of technicality in Cape Town versus kind of like the Alps sort of thing. But we all know Jim can pretty much run anything if he's ready to go.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm excited to see the US men's team in this race, just because there are a lot of really experienced runners in the race. I think Preston Cates would be the only one who's really only done the longer stuff in the US. I don't think he's run any longer stuff abroad. But I still think it could be, they could be up in that podium again, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And on this team that we have Preston Cates, Drew Holman, Eric Lapuma, Zach Miller, who also, you know, just like he's like a cat with 9 lives. You always think he like disappears for a little bit and then he comes back and gets top 5 at UTMB. Yeah. And so he's another great person with just a plethora of European experience. So I think they're well equipped. As far as on the women's side, 6 out of the 10 are returning, which this is actually the least amount of returners from Thailand in any of the 4 races across the board. So, I mean, if there's any race where that kind of makes sense, it's the longer ones. Like you're probably going to do less efforts of longer races, and depending on what your summer looks like and the introduction of the UTMB rules, that if you're trying to get into CCC, you already have another 100K somewhere else.
Or UTMB. Having to do a 100-miler.
Yeah. So like, to me, there's plenty of reasons why, you know, 4 people would not be returning. So as far as the women, we have Blondine, who was first last year. She will be back. Ida Nilsson, she will not be back, probably because she's running Western States.
Yeah, she's running Western States. Yeah.
Third is Gemma Arenas from Spain. She's not returning. Sorry. 4th is not returning. Esther from Hungary. Kistelag.
I think she's also running Western States.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. So, you know, when Western States is only 2 weeks after, you're probably gonna get this one. 5th, Rosanna Bouchard from Germany. She's returning. 6th, Audrey Tanguy from France. She's returning. 8th, Marianne Delespierre from France is returning. 9th, Giudita Torini from Italy is returning. Sorry, 8th is not returning. And last, 10th, Sinmaya Buddha, she is returning, which she kind of bursted onto the scene last year, where she pretty much was second from the gun behind Blondine in CCC, in which was like one of like probably the best women's 100K last year as far as like field depth and everything. So yeah, really in a great group coming back. France was the one who took the team title last year with 1st, 6th, and 7th place. talk about sealing the deal there.
I know. I remember seeing I was watching the live stream when they finished, and it was like the third person finished and they just like tackled each other on the ground. It was like the coolest celebration to watch of the day.
I love that. The French are great at celebrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty hard to beat.
It's a little disappointing to see so many of the top like 5 gone, but at the same time, it just like opens up the race to a whole different level. I don't think anybody's beating Blondine personally. She is like unstoppable. You know, she didn't do that well. Well, she still did well at Zagama. She got like 5th place at Zagama, but I think that she was probably training through for this race, just to guess. And so I'm excited to see Blondine back out on the World Champs course. And some other names that weren't top 10, not even at the race last year, are Anne-Marie Madden from Canada. She has been 11th at Western States before, 3rd at Black Canyons. She was 2nd at Tarawera in 2020, and she got 4th at Les Templiers in 2017. And Lucy Bartholomew from Australia, she won the Tarawera 100 miler this year. She was 2nd at Ultra Trail Australia 100K, which was, I think, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And she was 3rd at Western States in 2018. So a couple more names to add to the women's 80K list to watch, along with our U.S. women. Hannah Allgood, I think, will be this. This seems like a race for Hannah, in my opinion. Like if you put this race compared to her performance at like San Juan Solstice, not as much elevation gain, but San Juan Solstice is much higher for the whole race. So, yeah, it'll be a long but exciting race.
Yeah, I think we are taking like a really strong women's team for this race. Like Hannah, Claire has a ton of European experience, has gotten multiple podiums overseas. And then
she also was 2nd at that San Juan Solstice behind Hannah. I think it was like a bit of a back and forth between them all day.
That's awesome. I love when there's a good battle on U.S. soil.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then last year, Claire won Black Canyons 100K earlier on in the year. She's won Western States. She won that in 2019. And she also has just like multiple top 10. She also won CCC in 2017. I'm trying to find it, but I also think she won Lavaredo at some point too. So she definitely has like a little bit of everything. I think that would have been like in 2018 or 2019. Yep.
Claire's one of those people that you always like look at her training and you're like, how did she do that?
Yes, exactly. Oh, sorry. Top 10 at Lavaredo was her result. So she's there, which will be awesome. And then lastly, Emily Schmitz, just another great U.S. addition. She actually ended up taking Erin's spot. Erin had won Lake Sonoma and then unfortunately got injured. So that's why she won't be joining the team in Austria. But Emily Schmitz actually led the trail short team back in 2019 with like a top 10 finish. I want to say she was like 6th or 7th in Patagonia, had done the Golden Trail World Series before that a couple of times. And this year has kind of just been on a tear in those like UTMB, like marathon distance races. So I think she's going to be ready to go.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So day 4 is our classic mountain race on June 10th. For the juniors, it's only 1 loop, but for the seniors, it's 2. And so loop 1 is 7.5 kilometers with 1,200 feet. And the second one is about the same. They're 2 different loops, slightly different loops, but they're pretty similar in distance and elevation gain. So let's talk about classic mountain men.
Yeah. So 2 of the podium people or guys from last year actually aren't returning. So 1st and 3rd aren't returning. So that leaves Patrick Kipniego. He's 2nd. He runs for Kenya. Also I should mention that 1st and 3rd were both from Uganda last year. And that team obliterated the field. They had gotten 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th. So 4 in the top 5 and 2 of them are not returning. But I have no doubt that whoever they replace them with can do just as good. Something else to note that we said a little bit earlier is that last year, the Ugandan bus didn't make it in time for the VK. So keep in mind that when these guys were racing this classic race in Thailand, they were all fresh, whereas a lot more people were doubling. Okay, so second is returning. Fourth, Leonard Kimnoges from Uganda is returning. Then we have Eliud Cherup, also from Uganda. He's returning. So they were fourth and fifth. Sixth, Andrew Blanes from Spain, or Blans. Seventh, Alberto Vender from Italy. He's returning. Eighth is not. Ninth, Cesar Maestri from Italy. And 10th, Jikim Kovar from the Czech Republic. So yeah, some fast dudes.
Yes, I know. And when you look at the results too, like they were all so close. The top 10 was like a 2-minute spread or something like that. And so that'll be exciting to have most of those guys back. Some other names to look out for. Sam Hendry, he's on the Canadian team, also on the trail team. We have done an interview with him before, if you have not listened to it. He's a cross-country skier from Utah, but got into trail running as a form of training for cross-country skiing. And so he has some Cirque Series podiums, as well as I think he did pretty well last year. His first 2 international races were the race in Norway at the Golden Trail Series and Sears and All. And I want to say he was top 25 at Sears and All. So he's fast, but he's also got those Cirque Series podiums under his belt, which really kind of imitate these types of races pretty well. And then Umbogo Kiriago Philemon, he was 5th at Sierras and All last year. And Dan Kurtz, our U.S. champion, and U.S. champion by quite a lot in the classic mountain race just 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it is going to be interesting. We also have an interview with Dan Kurtz if you haven't checked that out yet. But I think the thing that is kind of on everyone's radar for this race is that it starts on pavement and then you're on trail, then you descend pavement, you go through a town, and then you're on trail, and then you're on pavement again. And I think in total, there's almost like close to 4K of pavement running. It's like 3 or 4K, which in these races, that's quite a bit. Yeah.
It's not going to be quite as technical, I think, as like a lot of country championships or selections probably planned for. Yeah. So it definitely turns into a race of like almost who's fastest instead of who's the best at technical downhill and then being able to repeat it uphill and back down again.
Exactly. Yeah. And who knows, like the part that is on the trail might just be extremely technical that it kind of balances it out. But it's hard to say. Have you seen any part of this course yet?
I have not. Carly Rempel from Canada, she did a course preview today, but it wasn't enough that they posted on Instagram that like I could really tell. The trails didn't look that technical, but who knows, what portion of the trails they were able to video on. So it'll be an interesting race. I think I don't know about much on the men's side, but I think on the women's side, it changes my picks a lot. Totally. Having pavement as opposed to like a technical downhill.
Yeah. And, we threw Umbogo Philemon in there as someone to watch because if you're top 5 at Sears now, you probably have... You're fast. Yeah. And so that's why we may not be picking like some people to watch out for that are really good on technical terrain. And then we also know that Patrick Kipniego, who has really been tearing up like those shorter distances recently. We talked about him quite a bit just a little bit ago in the VK. But he's also got some leg speed. He's got like a 102 half. So he's kind of got a good balance of everything. So yeah. Now, podium. Oh, last thing too. Someone who's notably missing is Joe Gray. He's really done this race a lot historically. And I think it's a very interesting, I just would want to know like why he's just focusing on the VK and not doubling like a lot of people are.
Yeah, it is interesting. My podium is Patrick Ombogo, and then I'm gonna throw Dan Kurtz in third, just for fun.
Well, he's your dark horse. You got to keep going. Yeah, I definitely think Patrick will take the win here. Ombogo as well. And you know what? I'll throw Dan in there too.
Let's go, Dan.
Let's go, Dan.
And then on the women's side, we have 7 of the top 10 returning. First place, Rebecca Cheptegei, Uganda. Probably missed the VK, is my guess, from last year. Second place is not returning. Third place, USA's Ali Mack will be returning. Fourth, Monica Floria from Romania. Scout Adkin from the UK. Sixth, Judith Weiner will not be in this race, but she will be in the VK in the short trail. Hannah Grober of Germany in 7th. Holly Page from the UK in 8th. And Ondietz Iturbe from Spain in 9th. Ondietz did pretty well recently at Zagama, right? Or did we may have just had her in our picks and that's why I'm thinking that. But yeah, having Rebecca Cheptegei back, I think definitely leaves this as a pretty fast race still. Somebody who was not at the champs last year, who was supposed to be and will be this year, is Grayson Murphy though. And I think that really mixes up the field a lot, especially because a lot of it is on roads. Because anybody follows Grayson Murphy, you know that she has run like under 920 in a steeple, 109 and a half. She's fast.
Yeah, she's really fast. She definitely adds a different mix to the race, like EmKay said, with the asphalt and everything. But there are some other women that will probably add some leg speed to the race. So we have Valeries Kassang. We mentioned her in the VK too, I believe. I'd have to double check. But she was second in Sierre Zinal after the updated standings, and she got first at the Dixons the week before. So she's fast. And also Madeira, that was her first time ever doing technical stuff. Like we mentioned, 5th fastest time overall. So she is doing the double. Lindsay Webster, she's representing Canada. She was the Sky Running overall champion last year. And she's like a bajillion time obstacle course race world champion too. So she's really good at technical terrain, but she's also really fast, because in those obstacle course races, you normally do the obstacles and then you like sprint. So it's like a bunch of intervals within these very anaerobic exercises. She was the Broken Arrow champion, I believe, in 2019. So she does like shorter races and she does really well. Elise Poncet, this is I think someone will mention potentially in our podium, but Elise is a freaking, I don't know, she's amazing at downhill. You don't really want Elise behind you ever. She kind of just floats on stairs and any technical terrain. She's second behind, and she's really good at uphill. Yeah, she's just these shorter races she hammers. But she was second at World Champs in 2019 behind Grayson. And I remember being at that race, and Grayson just like shot off like a rocket. And I think the field didn't know what to do with that. They were like, "Is this girl like going this fast?" And so in the downhill, Elise actually cut the time down behind Grayson, but it wasn't enough. Grayson had built enough of a lead. So I think this time around, Elise knows what to expect with Grayson. So maybe she's challenged her a little bit earlier.
Yeah, because we saw Grayson do that at US Champs as well. She just was like, boom, gone. And nobody could catch her after that because she just made up so much ground on that first climb.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
that'll be interesting.
It will be interesting. And Elise was second behind EmKay in Skyrune last year. And she was actually pretty close. And she was 4th overall in the Golden Trail World Championship standings. We also have Tove Alexanderson. Tove is, I keep saying this about every woman, but just watch the Golden Trail World Series final 2020 and watch the first stage. This woman is absolutely fearless. any sport she does, she's like world class at it. So she's done regular orienteering and she became the world champion. Then she did ski orienteering and then she became another like multi-international champion. And then she started trail running and she's won every single race except that final. And she's done big races like Ring of Steel, Vial Marathon, Limone Extreme. And she, similar to Grayson, from the gun, she just goes because she's so used to like sprinting all the time with orienteering.
Yeah, I was looking at her Wikipedia page and the amount of like world championship gold medals that she has is insane. There's like 20 or 30 of them.
Yes. And I think she's like 29 or something like that. But yeah, she's very good. I think the hard part will be the pavement for her though. So seeing how she does with that, we'll see, because she typically thrives in like the harshest, most difficult kind of terrain. Yeah. And then Grayson Murphy. Okay. Are you going to call your podium? I do want to say one last thing
for me.
It's really hard. Last thing. So Rebecca, the winner from last year, if this helps anyone, her PR in the marathon is 2:22:47. So she's okay.
She's just okay.
And this is pavement. So just something to think about.
Yeah, I had a different podium and then I remembered that this was pavement, or a lot of it was pavement, and I changed it around quite a lot. But I'm going to go Grayson, Faleris, and then Rebecca.
I think that's solid. And I guess before you say your third, where does Allie Mack fit in all of this?
I don't know, because it depends on the Allie Mack that we're getting, you know. I think that, if it's Thailand Allie Mack, like she's in the top 5. But if it's the Allie Mack that was at US Champs, I'm not, I think she's top 10, but not top 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I've seen her rock like asphalt stuff for sure. Like I'm not too worried about that. No. But yeah, it just depends on how she's at the start line. Okay. Yeah. Who are you calling for third?
Oh, it was Grayson, Faleris, and then Rebecca.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. You put Faleris in second. Nice. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to put Grayson first, but I think like the VK, she's going to get challenged. Like, I think that's what I'm most excited about is she's gonna really race people. Maybe for the first time. No, she's had a couple of good battles, but I still think she comes out on top. And then Rebecca, maybe like right there, you know. Mm-hmm. I hope it's a sprint finish. That would be exciting. And Grayson gets the best end of it. And then I'm going to throw Elise in there in third. It's like I go back and forth between her and Faleris, but I'm going to give Elise the better end of the stick.
All right. That is our World Champs preview. This might be like our longest episode, honestly. There are so many races.
But with the best information.
Yes. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. There is not information about the live stream yet. But once we get that information from the website or the Instagram, we'll be sure to put it on our Instagram as well so that people can watch. Because I know that they are doing a live stream in like 6 different languages so that everybody can watch.
And one of them will probably be English.
One of them is definitely English.
Also, for the week of the championships, I am doing, so obviously EmKay is racing, so sadly she won't be joining, but I will be joined by Adam Peterman and Aaron Clark, which is very exciting. And so we'll be doing an episode where we'll review the first couple of days, and we'll be doing kind of like a team standings preview, everything in one going into the last couple days. So very excited to do that with them. So that Friday of the World Championship week, please tune in and like check that out.
Oh yeah, it's World Champs week.
You.
This has been the Sub Hub, brought to you by Freetrail.